Hello and welcome to my channel, back to my channel. Hello, nice to see you. Lately I have been reading a lot and definitely not filming a lot. We just got back from Europe about 2 weeks ago, and so I've just been trying to catch up with work and building my office, which is exciting because I have this new chair that I can read in, edit in, film in, so I'm not having to just sit in my boyfriend's office / movie room. So now I have a chair to film in, so it's a nice little comfy space. So yeah, I've been reading a lot, but actually not finishing a lot of books. I will start a book and then I'll get a new book and then I'll be like, oh yes, I want to finish this new book that I just got, even though I'm right in the middle of another book that I'm supposed to be reading. So yeah, I don't know about that, but anyway, yeah, I've just been doing a lot of reading. And so for this video, as the title would suggest, I wanted to talk about some of my top reads I've read this year. Some of them I read and have the physical copy, and then some of them I read through audio. Like I said, my job requires me to do a lot of driving, so that's how I get a lot of my reading done, is through audio. But when I come home, usually my comfort is to pick up an actual physical book. So here are some of my top reads of this month. Oh wait, here are some of my top reads of 2024 so far. I've read about 25 books this year so far, which is pretty good. I mean, by this point last year, I think I was maybe at like 22, so halfway through the year, reading 25 books is pretty good. Hoping to get that Europe video edited and put up soon, because we took a lot of really great footage and it was such a great trip. It's just a lot of footage to edit and go through, so it's a little daunting. But anyway, here are some of my top reads of 2024 so far. So lately I've been really wanting to get into horror because I think that it's a nice break from like my usual thriller / romance / dark romance sort of rut that I was going through. I was sort of like cycling through those three genres. I needed a little bit of a break. So I wanted to kind of get into horror without jumping in like with the craziest stuff. So I started with Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulek. I think I butchered that last name. It's fine. So this book follows a young woman who has a past, and by the way, this is all in the back of the book, so I'm not spoiling anything. But she has a past and a history, pretty troubled, and she goes and works for this family. And this family has a son who, the mom describes him as being very artistic. He loves to draw, and he starts drawing these very unusual and very dark pictures. And so the book sort of like follows the story of this family, her past, but then also, you know, what is going on with this young child and why is he drawing these very weird, creepy pictures. And what I love about this book is it actually shows you, don't look at my nails. You're not having to imagine what the pictures look like. They actually give you an image of what the pictures look like, and that's what I really love about this book. It feels like you're very immersed in it, and you're sort of like growing anxiety is like along with the characters, and then you're also feeling like you are watching this sort of insanity that this child is going through while reading the book, and that's what I really liked about it. It's a great starter for anyone wanting to get into horror, I believe. It's not super scary. It sort of comes off a little bit like a thriller, but it's not super scary. And that's what I really like about it as like a starter for getting into the genre. And so I bought some other books as well. I bought some Stephen King books. And so I'm hoping to get more into horror from here. This book, I don't think I would have picked, this book I had seen all over TikTok, and I had seen this author all over TikTok, and like some people have mixed opinions about her books, so I hadn't really tried them out yet. In my local book club, and this was a book club pick, it's at Barnes & Noble. It's a romance Barnes & Noble book club, and they chose this book, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. And that is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is my first time, besides reading Twilight when I was like in high school. Yeah, I think I was in high school when I read Twilight for the first time. This is the first time I've read something fantasy-like since reading Twilight when I was in high school. This book is about a marriage between a vampire and a werewolf. And at first I was like, I don't know if I'm really gonna, like, I'm just not into reading about that. But I actually say I really enjoyed this book. It was my first time reading Ali Hazelwood, and from what other people say, she usually writes a lot of her characters with the men who fall first and are obsessed with the women in the story. And I definitely got that vibe from this book. What I also love about, what I love about this book is also the main character. I believe her name is Misery. Her name is Misery. Misery is hilarious, but like hilarious in like a dark humor type of way. She's very self-deprecating, but also someone who's very confident within herself, which I really like about a female character. I love a character that's not going to like sort of like walk around as though she's the best and like can do anything and everything. I don't really mesh well with those characters because I don't relate to that. I know I can't do everything, you know? But I love how she's just very self-deprecating, but then also confident within herself. She was such a joy, the story through her eyes. I absolutely loved her, and I would definitely recommend this book, especially for someone who's wanting to sort of like dabble into fantasy, but you're not wanting to jump into one of those very long series. I think this one's a really good to start with. I'm happy that my book club forced me to read outside of my normal genre, and I definitely will be picking up more of Ali Hazelwood's books in the future. See you in a little second. So for the next book, I have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now I wanted to read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, but I was watching a video on TikTok by Larry Reads, and she said that you should probably start with Part of Your World, then read Yours Truly, and then read Just for the Summer. So I said, fine, I guess I'll start with Part of Your World, and I'm very, very happy that I did. This book is sweet, it's adorable, I find myself really drawn to characters that go through things, and what I mean by that is going through real world situations that they have to overcome in order to not only find a way to love themselves and trust themselves again, but then also get into a relationship. I feel like it's just so real and raw and actually what people in the real world go through. I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels realistic, and that's kind of what I want out of my romances. Sometimes when romances are very fluffy and cute, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that happens, but I feel like it's just too fluffy for me, and I like a character that goes through something. I like the fact that like she's the older person in the relationship and he's younger than her. I like the fact that they're coming from these two different worlds. He's like a farm boy and she's a doctor, and they come from, like I said, two different worlds, and they figure out a way that those two worlds can come together and they can both still chase the dreams and desires that they want while also still be together. It feels like neither of them have to sacrifice themselves or sacrifice what they want in order to be with each other, which is also something that I enjoy, is they find a way to like work it out. The banter between these two is also really cute, and I have to say it's one of my favorite romances I've read this year. So I'm very happy that I was recommended to start with this book in Abby Jimenez's collection, and I hope to read the other books, especially the other books in this particular world. I actually have them all. I haven't read them yet because I love to buy interconnected standalones and then wait forever to actually finish them. Definitely would recommend. I loved this book. And this book was a reread because the paperback version came out and I wanted to have the paperback version. Happy Place by Emily Henry, and this one I actually annotated. I love Happy Place. It was the first Emily Henry book I had ever read, and I think what connects me so deeply to Happy Place, I relate so much to these two main characters. Harriet, I connect with her need to want to be perfect, her need to not want to disappoint the people that she loves, her avoidance of conflict. I just relate to that so much. And then with Win, I connect deeply with his, feeling like he needed to sort of heal himself before being relationship. I really connected deeply to how they come from two different families that are very different. Wynn's family is very animated, very loud, very lively, but they're also going through the loss of someone very close to them in the family. I don't want to spoil anything. And then you've also got Harriet, whose family is, still together, but they're also fractured in the way that they communicate. They're fractured in the way that the parents have put so much pressure on her and her sister to be perfect or be exactly who they think they should be, because they don't want them to repeat the same mistakes that they did when they were younger. But ultimately they end up hurting their children in the end. And I think I just connect so deeply with those family stories, as well as the found family and their friendships. It feels like the friendships within this book sort of like fulfilled what each character was needing out of each other. And I think that's why I connect so deeply with Happy Place. It was a great reread, and I just love this book, and so I was really happy to do this reread. Going along with Emily Henry, I read Funny Story, and this book had me chuckling out loud. I absolutely loved, I don't know why I keep saying absolutely. Anyway, I loved this book. I wouldn't say that I liked it more than Happy Place, but I did have joy reading it. I thought that I loved the premise of this book of two characters whose partners are now together, and now they're forced to live with each other because they had no other place to live. I thought that was such an interesting premise, and definitely Emily Henry did a very good job of executing that story and really making you root for these two characters. This book was chaotic, it was funny, it was heartwarming, and I think that this male main character was just, at first he kind of seemed like a little bit of a burnout, kind of a little bit of someone who doesn't have their stuff together. But in the end, he sort of came off as someone who knows where he wants to be, knows what he wants to do, has immersed himself in the community, and I just found that, and then like he's such a, what do they call it? Like a golden retriever type of character, and I just loved it. And like I said, I didn't think I liked it more than Happy Place, but I really enjoyed it, and top read of the year, one of my top reads of the year. So this author is like an auto-buy author. I will read anything that she puts out, anything. Well, she did release a book recently, actually, and I think it was about Storm. I haven't read it because I know nothing about comic books, but I love her. I love her so much. Anyway, it's Tiffany D. Jackson. I read her book, The Weight of Blood. Now, The Weight of Blood is like a Carrie retelling, but it also adds elements about race and class. And I actually read this book through audio, and it is like a whole production. There's music, there's different voices for different characters, there's like a podcast segment that like fits into the book. It's just absolutely one of the best audiobooks I have ever heard. And of course, Tiffany D. Jackson is just an amazing writer. It still follows sort of the beats of Carrie, but in a very Tiffany D. Jackson type of way. And if you know anything about Tiffany D. Jackson, a lot of her stories are around discussions about race and class. And this one, a senior girl, Maddie, who's a senior in high school, for most of her life has sort of been living it as a white woman, but she's actually half black, and the whole school doesn't know until one day it starts to rain outside. And when it rains, her hair sort of like curls up, and it's curls up in a way that a 4C black woman's hair would curl up. And is exposed basically of being half black. And so the story sort of like follows from there of this town. The town is very, even though the town is in modern contemporary times, the town is very racist. They were having like segregated high school proms for like the white and black students. The discovery that Maddie is half black sort of like completely sets off a chain of events that changes that town forever. And I absolutely loved this book. I had to get the physical copy because I loved it so much. So far, I have read so many of Tiffany D. Jackson's books, and this one was one of my favorites. And I couldn't recommend this book anymore. It's just amazing and blew me away, just blew me away. Some other books that I read was All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. S.A. Cosby, again, kind of like Tiffany D. Jackson, he writes a lot of books that are centered around race and class. All the Sinners Bleed, it takes place in a town that is also having issues with race and class within the people in the town. It has a very sordid history when it comes to its treatment of its Black citizens, and there is a Black sheriff. They have the first time a Black sheriff, and the book sort of follows the point of view of this Black sheriff who's having to solve the mystery of a crime, a pretty brutal, horrible, decade-long crime that happens in the book. So I would definitely say check your trigger warnings, because this book can get pretty dark, especially when describing the crime that takes place. It can get very dark, but it's so well written. If you've never read anything by S.A. Cosby, he's such a great writer. Person who reads his audiobooks like a whole production. They really immerse you into the story. His narrator, who narrates All the Sinners Bleed, also narrates all his other books, and he does such an excellent job of voicing so many different characters and really embodying each character of the story. This book sort of feels like a crime thriller type of feel to it, but also having a message behind it. But what's great about, again, going back to Tiffany D. Jackson and S.A. Cosby, is a lot of their books, they're not really like beating you over the head with the message. It sort of feels like the message is very subtle. And that's what I really like about their books, is it's not shying away from having those tough conversations, but that it's also not being like just telling you how to feel or telling you how to think as well. I love his books. I've also read Razorblade Tears, which is one of his most popular books. This one follows a Black father and a white father whose sons are gay, and their sons actually get murdered, and they're trying to solve who murdered their sons in a sort of like a vigilante type of way. Both the two characters in the book for Razorblade Tears have a very tumultuous past and definitely did not have a good relationship with their sons before they passed away because of homophobia. That's another book that I just could not put down. I also listened to it through audio, and again, the same guy who narrates All the Sinners Bleed narrates Razorblade Tears, and he does such an excellent job. I couldn't recommend S.A. Cosby's books anymore. In fact, I read a third book of his this year called My Darkest Prayer. I had to think about it. Called My Darkest Prayer, again, read by the same narrator. I would say that out of the three, I would put All the Sinners Bleed, Razorblade Tears, My Darkest Prayer. I felt like My Darkest Prayer, I think like one of the first books that he wrote, and I would say they just didn't, as much as I loved it and finished it, I would say that I enjoyed those other two books a little bit more. My Darkest Prayer sort of follows a man who is half Black, half white, who lives in a town, again, that is dealing with some racism, but a pastor ends up being murdered. And that sort of sets off a chain of events that sort of unravels certain dark secrets about the town. And again, it's a good book, auto by author for me, but I just feel like I didn't like it as much, but it was still pretty much a 5-star read for me. And yeah, those are the top books from, what am I saying? Those are the top books that I've read so far this year. They're a nice mix of some romance, some fantasy, some thrillers, starting to get into horror. And yeah, have you read any of these books? Would you recommend any of them? Can you recommend me any horror books that maybe I should start with next? That'd be very appreciated. And thanks for watching. I'm hoping to get that Europe video edited soon. It's like I get out of a book slump and then I go right back into an editing slump. Also, I've been thinking about doing some reading sprints on live here on YouTube, maybe doing like an hour, couple hour reading sprints. I know for me, I usually either study or read better when other people are joining me. So I was thinking maybe that's something I'd want to try. Maybe, if anyone's interested. If not, that's cool. Anyway, bye.